Broadcasting live from Jackson and State in Chicago's Loop, it's Radio DePaul Sports and Entertainment.
You're listening to RDSE, where sports and...
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE. I am your host, Michael Lyons, and it has been an amazing week in the association this past week since last Friday. I mean, for the Kings, for me as a Kings fan, it hasn't been great. There's been some ups and downs this week, but let's just get right into it. Started with the Sacramento Kings, who went 1-2 since last Friday with their two losses, coming against the Knicks, which was a 143-120 loss, a win against the Nets, a 110-96 victory, and then a 117-104 loss to Philly in Philly. All these games were on the road. We're on a little road stretch right now. In this Knicks game, 143 is not a score you ever want to let a team win. That's not a winning recipe, letting up 143 points, especially to a team like the New York Knicks, who, I mean, once they get going, their defense can really lock down towards the end of the games and can't let up 143. In this game, we saw Domantas Sabonis and Malik Monk lead the way. Malik Monk with 31 points in 34 minutes. Domantas Sabonis, another double-double, 25 points, 12 assists. DeMar DeRozan had 18. Keegan Murray had 12. 2 for 7 from the three-point line. He's having since the start of the year, he's been really, really bad from behind the three-point arc, so we need to hope that he can get that going. De'Aaron Fox, 14 points. Not a great game from him, 6 for 20 shooting. He had 2 blocks, but 2 turnovers, only 4 assists. And then off the bench, didn't get a lot of bench scoring. Keon Ellis, only 6 points. Devin Carter, 4. Kevin Huerter, 4. And Trey Lyles was 6. And then we also played Doug McDermott, Alex Len, and Jordan McLaughlin, but they all put up a donut. The New York Knicks, they were led by OG Anunoby with 33 points, Jalen Brunson 25, Mikal Bridges 27, Josh Hart 20, and Cat with 18. Cat had a double-double. So did Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. So their starters just really poured it in. They shot extremely well, 49%. I mean, the Kings only shot 48%, but three-point shooting, they shot 47 compared to our 38. And then their bench unit, they didn't get much from guys, but Landry Shamet, who's been getting some good minutes for them lately, 9 points. Miles McBride with 4, Campaign with 3, and then Precious Achiuwa with 4. And then it got to a blowout, so they started playing some of the younger guys, but they didn't really do much. This game, tough watch. Hopefully we can turn it around shooting-wise. And then in our second game of the 3-game stretch since last Friday was a game against the Brooklyn Nets, where we went into Barclays Center and got the 110-96 victory behind a De'Aaron Fox 30-point game on 11 for 19 shooting. Domantas Sabonis, a 2020 triple-double game with 10 assists, 21 points, 22 rebounds. DeMar DeRozan, 17 points, and Malik Monk, 16 points. Keegan Murray, 9 points, but 1 for 3 shooting, so it was a little bit better just off of the volume standpoint for Keegan. And then off the bench, Keon Ellis gave us 11, Trey Lyles 4, and Devin Carter 2. And then for the Nets, I mean, nobody really just showed up to play for them. They're struggling to shoot the ball recently. They only shot 36% in this game compared to the Kings shooting 55%. The Nets were led by D'Angelo Russell, had 19 points on 4 for 11 shooting. And then off the bench, Day'Ron Sharpe gave him 12, Tyrese Martin gave him 8, and Zaire Williams with 5. And then the rest of the starters, Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton, only gave you 6. Keon Johnson gave you 10, and Jalen Wilson gave you 15. And then in the last game since last Friday was a 117-104 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers in Philly. This game, we were led by another triple-double by Domantas Sabonis, a 19-point game from DeMar DeRozan, 21-point game from Malik Monk, 19-point game from De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray, 17 points, but 0 for 5 from the three-point line. Bench, Keon really struggled this game, shooting 2 for 10, 2 for 9 from the three-point line. We just really struggled to shoot the three-point ball in this game, shooting 10 for 41, which is a little under 25%. And then the Sixers, they shot it well from the three-point line, 41% this game, behind Tyrese Maxey with a 30-point game, even though he struggled to shoot from the three-point line, but they shot a lot better than the Kings did. And then, other than that, Kelly Oubre gave him 15. Reggie Jackson and Ricky Council gave him both 13 off the bench. Nothing crazy. Split the season series with the Philadelphia 76ers, but it was tough to see, especially when there is talks of De'Aaron Fox being shopped by the Sacramento Kings regarding the fact that he hasn't yet signed a long-term contract and he wouldn't in the offseason. And the Kings are worried they won't get it done before his free agency in 2026. Now, De'Aaron and his wife, Reese, both made it apparent De'Aaron did not request a trade, especially during the run we were on. I mean, we were on like a 7-game winning streak. We were 10-3 or 10-2, and then this came out that he is being shopped. But the biggest thing is he did not verbally come out and say that he wanted to be traded. He just said, once they said that he is being shopped, he wasn't against the idea. He wants the best for his career, and he wants to be on a championship contender, and he doesn't feel that Sacramento is that way right now. I mean, it might change if we can make a splash at the trade deadline or maybe in the offseason, because we'll have one more year with De'Aaron. But obviously, I mean, if I'm him, looking at the Spurs, I mean, they're a little bit worse than us right now, but you put De'Aaron in there, they're going to fly up to probably a playoff team, not even a play-in team. But the best trade I've seen for De'Aaron Fox was for Fox straight up for Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, and 3 first-round picks. Now, De'Aaron did say his preferred destination is San Antonio if he is traded. But, I mean, it's tough to say from a Kings fan standpoint if I want this. We haven't seen. Stephon Castle has looked good, and he's 6'6" with a 6'9" wingspan. He's going to be great on the defensive end as a guard, which we really struggle with right now, is defensive guards and just defensive guys in general, because a lot of our starters are just offensive-minded. And with Stephon Castle, he might give us some defensive upside compared to De'Aaron, but his offensive game is not as developed as it is as De'Aaron's is, obviously. But I was looking at stats, their first season is pretty similar in how they're both being used. They're both around 42% usage rate, and their true shooting percentage is around the same. So right now they're looking as if they could somewhat be the same player. And then we also add a defensive guy like Keldon Johnson, who kind of just plays all over the place. He's kind of a hustle guy. Malachi Branham, an ex-Ohio State alum, hasn't shown too much in the league so far, but he's kind of battled minutes in San Antonio. And then obviously those 3 first-round picks are the biggest thing, depending on where. I think it's Atlanta, Phoenix, and maybe a San Antonio pick is all part of that. I'm not going to say that I'm fully against trading De'Aaron for Stephon Castle, because I like the upside of having Stephon Castle on a rookie contract, so that means we could make a bigger move and get somebody else since we get off the De'Aaron contract. Keldon Johnson does have a little bit bigger of a contract, but I'm sure we could move him if we don't feel he is a necessary part of this trade that we want. And then we get 3 first-round picks. So I'm not fully against trading De'Aaron. I want what's best for De'Aaron. Obviously, as a Kings fan, it's going to be sad if De'Aaron does go, but he's put so much into Sacramento and so much for this team. And, I mean, we made moves for him. If he's not fully a part of it, then he's not fully a part of it. And we can't be mad at him. I don't want him getting any hate from Sacramento fans. He didn't request a trade. Sacramento wants to look around and see what they can get for him. And honestly, if we don't get Stephon Castle, I don't want us to trade him because I don't think there's any other trades around the league and the teams that are willing to trade for him that I think will push us to what we'll get from De'Aaron. Stephon Castle in a couple of seasons could maybe give us what De'Aaron Fox is giving us, or maybe a little bit less on the offensive end, but the defensive upside of Stephon Castle is going to be huge, and that rookie contract is the biggest thing. Now for more trade talks, the Suns are now targeting Bogdan Bogdanović from the Hawks, who are reported to be looking to move him. Could help bolster the bench unit and give them a punch of scoring. Right now, Bogdan Bogdanović this season is averaging 10 points on around 30% from the three-point line, 37% for the field goal from the field. He's not giving you too much on the offensive end, but he's in a little bit of a different position with Atlanta. He's coming off the bench for Atlanta. He's only played 24 games this season due to some injuries. I'm not fully against the Suns going out and getting him. It depends on what they have to give up for him. I assume it will probably be some second-round picks and maybe, Bol, maybe somebody around his contract, which I'm not exactly sure what kind of contract he's on, and that kind of depicts who they would be willing to trade for. But I don't know. It could be a good spark off the bench for a team that isn't getting a lot of bench scoring in the Phoenix Suns. And then we'll move a little bit further north. Golden State Warriors staff is looking at a possible big trade. Some of their picks are between LaVine and Butler, and it is said that LaVine is viewed as the safer option because he'd be a better fit in the Golden State culture. I like that answer. Jimmy Butler, obviously, we know what's going on, and we'll get a little bit deeper into that in a little bit. Jimmy Butler is just a locker room cancer wherever he goes after a couple seasons. The Warriors right now, they cannot afford having a locker room cancer. You have a guy like Stephen Curry. You have a guy like Draymond Green who can also be a locker room cancer at some points. Draymond and Jimmy Butler, I don't think would fit well. Steph Curry, he could maybe, but I don't know. He's never been able to really control Draymond. What Draymond does, what Draymond wants to do. And if they could get LaVine, who is a proven scorer, could give them a punch, I'm not sure who would be a part of the trade. Maybe Buddy Hield. Andrew Wiggins probably would be a part of it, actually. Gary Payton, some of those guys. Because there's another trade that's in the works for Golden State, Toronto, and Bruce Brown. Or Toronto and Miami, Golden State, and Toronto. I like LaVine in Golden State more than I like Jimmy Butler in Golden State. Now, I know Jimmy Butler gives him a defensive upside that Zach LaVine doesn't. But the thing with Zach LaVine is he is not going to come in there and feel as if he's the best player. Now, I don't know exactly if Jimmy Butler is going to do that same thing, but he has those tendencies to always think he is the best player on a team. And when you're going to be on a team with Stephen Curry, who is the best player in Golden State history and probably the best point guard of all time, and Draymond Green, who is a Golden State legend, you're not going to come in and you're not going to have that attitude because it's just going to get shut down really quickly. Now, the 3-team trade that is in the works for the Jimmy Butler trade this is just the main names that are moving. Jimmy Butler to Golden State, Andrew Wiggins to Toronto, back in his hometown, and then Bruce Brown to Miami. I like that trade for Toronto and Miami, but I don't like it for Golden State. I like it for Toronto. They get another Canada guy, fits that culture. They're just going to bolster just getting a lot of Canadian guys, which I feel like they've never really had. They've never really had a team that's full of Canada guys, and I feel like that is a good step to maybe make yourself a big like a big city, make yourself a big target for some free agents if they're Canadian. There's a lot of Canadian players in the NBA the last decade, but a lot of them don't go and play for Toronto. If you get a team that is based off the Toronto culture, because you have a lot of Toronto and Canadian guys on your team, you're going to make yourself a bigger target for these Canadian guys to come and play for you. Bruce Brown in Miami, he's a great defender. Haven't seen much of him since he signed that big contract for Toronto because he's dealt with some injuries, but I think he would fit in with what Eric Spoelstra would like him to be. And they get off Jimmy Butler, who's just been a pain for them the last month and a half. So if that goes through, I mean, obviously, if you're a Golden State fan, you're still going to be like, oh, yeah, we got Jimmy Butler and we got off Andrew Wiggins. We just get like a glorified Andrew Wiggins, a way better Hall of Fame Andrew Wiggins type player. So that could work, but I don't know. If I'm Golden State, I'm still looking to get Zach LaVine over Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler is also now seen to have a chance to land in Milwaukee with Dame and Giannis. The Bucks would have to offload Pat Connaughton first and then move Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis for Jimmy Butler. This trade is interesting because it gives them a three-headed monster in Milwaukee. If Jimmy could come in and play for Giannis and Dame, this is one of the best teams. This is probably the best three-headed monster in the NBA, no matter where you go. Because you got Giannis, who on the defensive end is no slouch. He is a freak of nature. He's super fast. Jimmy Butler, a defensive mastermind. Dame, a three-point shooter. Jimmy Butler, a scorer. And then Giannis is just a freak. Like, you can't stop Giannis unless you have a guy that is built like Giannis. Now, Pat Connaughton, I mean, just move off of him. He's been there for a while. I mean, obviously, Milwaukee fans probably aren't going to be the happiest if that happens, but if it's to get Jimmy Butler, I mean, I'd be willing to take it. The biggest thing with this, I mean, Chris Middleton has not been good since he's dealt with some of those injuries a couple of seasons ago. Bobby Portis is the bench in Milwaukee. He gives you so much scoring off the bench, so much energy. You need somebody else to step up and take that place, which could be tough to find. Maybe you find somebody like that in the Pat Connaughton trade. So it depends on who they get in the Pat Connaughton trade or what they get. I mean, I assume it would probably be some picks, and then Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and probably some picks for Jimmy Butler. I like that if you can get Jimmy Butler under control. Now, since we've been talking about Jimmy Butler a lot and where he might end up, let's talk about what has happened to Jimmy Butler since last week. More Jimmy Butler news is he has been suspended a third time this month, and this time indefinitely after walking out of practice after being informed that he would be benched for Haywood Highsmith. This is getting tiresome to just keep hearing of Jimmy Butler getting suspended, forcing his way out of Miami. It's just not fun. This is all that's in the media for Miami. You're not hearing anything about anything else except what's going on between Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler, and Eric Spoelstra. It's not fun to keep listening to. It's not fun to just keep pushing these narratives of where Jimmy Butler's going to go. We just need him to leave. Just let the Miami players hoop. Let them hoop. Khalil Ware, who has been probably their only bright spot besides Tyler Hero being named to the All-Star game, which we will talk about in a little bit. Khalil Ware, he's really showed that he could be a problem in the NBA. I mean, he's only averaging 8.5 points this season with 1 block and around 5 rebounds in his 31 games he's played, but he's started 5 games. He has really turned it on the last 10 games. He's got 14.1 points, 1.4 blocks, and 8.8 rebounds. And then in San Antonio game, who they're about to play tomorrow, he had a 25-point game against them the first time. So Khalil Ware is really starting to prove himself. In his last 5 games, he's had 3 20-point games. I mean, not exactly. He had a 19-point game against Orlando, 22-point game versus Milwaukee, and 20-point game versus Portland. And all those games, he had a double-double. So he's really starting to prove himself. He looks good next to Bam, which is a little surprising because Bam at the 4 is not the best situation. But I like what's going on because Khalil Ware has that upside of being able to shoot, and Bam could just kind of roam the paint. And then Bam has started to prove that he could be a little bit of a playmaker with Tyler Hero. We just need the narratives in Miami to not be on Jimmy Butler. We need it to be on Khalil Ware, who is their bright spot. We need it to be on Tyler Hero. We just need to get out of this Jimmy Butler era in Miami and just let these guys hoop in Miami. Let Eric Spoelstra be the coach that he is. Let Pat Riley be the mastermind GM, president. Let's just have that happen. Let's not worry about Jimmy Butler. After he gets traded, let's not worry about him anymore. He's suspended. Let's not worry about him anymore. But walking out on a team practice is crazy. 3rd time this month, and now he's not getting, he's losing so much money from this, but he does not care about money. Jimmy Butler does not care about money. He just wants to go somewhere, win basketball games, and that's all that's on his mind right now. And, Jimmy's always been this guy that's going to force his way out of situations he does not like. He had a feud with Fred Hoiberg back in when he was in his Chicago days and got into it with Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade, and then got shipped off to Minnesota, and then he called Cat and Wiggins soft in a practice, and then he got shipped to Philly, and you know how that went down. Tobias Harris over me? Tobias Harris over me? That was Jimmy Butler. And now he's in Miami. He's doing the same thing. He's going to get to a point later on in his career where he's not the star player that he is, that nobody's going to want to sign him because they're not going to want to deal with his attitude and him feeling as if he's the best player in the league. Now, before we talk about what happened over the weekend, some other things going on in the NBA over the last week, we're going to take a quick commercial break, come back, talk about those, talk about Allstar Weekend, and then we'll end the show. So this has been Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE, and we'll be right back.
Rose crosses over the fadeaway. Let me step back and kiss myself. Oh my MVP time. Windy City Assassin does it again. Rose trying to get open, fires away. It's over. The Bulls win at the buzzer.
Live from downtown Chicago, you're listening to Radio DePaul Sports, the student voice of your DePaul Blue Demons.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSC. I'm your host, Michael Lyons. And I said we were going to point out what happened over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Now, first off, Sunday was the 5-year anniversary of the passing of Kobe Bryant. I just want to bring that to light. It does not feel real. I bet a lot of people saw all the things posted on Instagram. It just still does not feel real, man. It doesn't feel like Kobe Bryant has been gone for as long as he has, because he still has an impact on every single person in the NBA, in the sports media world, in any sport really. Kobe Bryant was just a huge inspiration to a lot of people, and it's sad that we lost him at such a young age, and Gigi Bryant as well. It just sucks, man, and I think we all remember where we were when we learned of the passing and how it really hit deep. And I don't want to dwell on it too much, but just don't take anything for granted. that's all I really have to say. Now, Saturday, I believe, was on a lighthearted note. Vince Carter has finally gotten his flowers from the NBA and from some of the teams he played for. On Saturday, I believe he has his number 15 jersey retired by the Brooklyn, New Jersey Nets, the Nets franchise. So that was super fun to see. Vince Carter was very overwhelmed with emotions, and it was fun to see a guy like Vince Carter finally getting his flowers after spending so much time in the league. And now he's only been out for a couple seasons, but we'll finally see him get his flowers. Now, I mean, one of the biggest things we have to talk about regarding the NBA this last week is the Houston Rockets. Man, they are going crazy this season. They beat the Cavaliers on back-to-back nights, 109, 108, 135, 131. Then they come into Boston. Ime Udoka versus Joe Mazzulla, a 114-112 victory for the Houston Rockets. And we saw Amen Thompson get his first ever game winner of his career, which ties back into Kobe because he was like, man, that was my first ever game winner. He's like, I feel like Kobe, man. To Dillon Brooks, who also had an amazing game. 36 points from Dillon Brooks, 10 for 15 from the three-point line. Amen Thompson, 33 points, 9 rebounds. He is a freak of nature. There's not many guys like Amen Thompson, a 6'7" guy who has super crazy athleticism, is super smart on the basketball court. Him and his brother Allstar, they know so much about NBA and NBA history. I saw a TikTok of them going through the draft, the first-round picks, and they got everybody up until, I think, the 23rd overall pick, maybe, which was Olivier Maxence Prosper, who was drafted by the Kings and then traded to the Mavericks. They started messing up down there, but, 23 picks in. They're just super smart. Amen Thompson is a freak. He deserves all of his flowers because in this game, it was him and Dillon Brooks versus Boston. The rest of the Houston Rockets starters, 11 points from Şengün, 7 points from Fred VanVleet, and then 12 points from Jalen Green. That was it. Their bench, Tari Eason gave them 6 in 2 for 10 shooting. And then, the Celtics did not play the best basketball they could have played and split the season series, but, Amen Thompson and Dillon Brooks they killed Boston. And Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and whoever was getting guarded by Amen Thompson and Dillon Brooks really struggled this game. Jason Tatum only had 19 points on 5 for 14 shooting. Luke Cornett, who was starting, had 18 points. Kristaps, 17. Drew Holiday, 8. And Jaylen Brown, 28 points. 10 for 23 shooting for Jaylen Brown, though. And then the bench, Peyton Pritchard had 15 for them, still fighting for that Sixth Man of the Year spot that he probably deserves. It's fun to see these young guys like Amen Thompson because, yesterday was their birthday. Amen Thompson and Allstar Thompson, they're only 22 years old. And Amen Thompson has really already taken that leap. Allstar has still struggled to take that leap. But Amen, in his last 10 games, is averaging 19 points, 9.9 rebounds. So almost a double-double in his last 10 games. His last 5 games, he has 21 against the Grizzlies, which they lost to, 11 against the Hawks, 33 against Boston, 23 against Cleveland, and 16 against Cleveland again. He's having a huge year. And then for his brother Allstar, let me just take a quick look. He's struggling in Detroit. He's not getting as many minutes as his brother. But in his last 10 games, he's averaging 9.3 points, 5 rebounds, and assist and a half, and a steal and a half. And then in his last 5 games, 10 points against Indiana, 0 points against Cleveland, 16 against Orlando, 16 against Atlanta, and then 11 against Houston. So, Amen so far is the better of the two twins, but Allstar still, I mean, we're not going to be able to take anything for granted with him because he shares the same genes as Amen. Amen is a little bit taller, but I don't think that really matters. They're super smart defensive demons. Like, they fly all over the court. And if Amen Thompson can establish a jump shot, he will be one of the best players in the NBA for years to come. That's the only thing he really struggles with so far. This season, he's shooting 25% from the three-point line. He's only shooting one attempt a game, so his volume is low because he's not confident in the shot. Last year, he shot 13%, which is worse, but he's shown a little bit of sign of improvement. Already this far into the season, he has more points than he did last year. And this Rockets team is going to be so fun to watch in the years to come. Got guys like Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, all these young guys. And then you fill in some good vets like Dylan Brooks, Fred VanVleet, and Jalen Green is still at the younger age. Alperen Şengün, I didn't even mention him. He's going to be a monster for years to come. So this Rockets team is going to be a team to watch out for in the future. I was talking to this with some of the RDSE guys a couple days ago before Sports Flash on Wednesday. I said if you're a team, if you're a fan of the Rockets or the Magic, you're in the best position based off of young, fun talent. Now, some people brought up Indiana as being a younger, fun team. I just don't think Indiana plays a fun brand of basketball like the Rockets and the Magic do. I'm not going to dive super deep into it, but that was the extent to our conversation, was talking about how fun it is to watch teams like the Rockets and the Magic. Now, another game we have to talk about was the Warriors versus the Lakers on Saturday, January 25th. We saw a 118-108 victory for the Los Angeles Lakers. The second half by Steph Curry in that game was terrible. 0 for 8 shooting and 0 for 4 from the three-point line. It was so bad. It was so bad to watch. And, the Lakers just took advantage of it in this game. LeBron had 25 and Anthony Davis had 36, so their stars came to play. For the Warriors, Wiggins led them with 20 points, and then Curry only had 13 in 32 minutes, and terrible shooting from him. But then the Warriors a couple nights ago, they spoil Wednesday night. The Warriors spoil Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 52-point game against the Golden State Warriors, where the Warriors won 116-109. Shai had 52 in this game, but still did not come out with the victory. In this game, Wiggins had 27, Steph Curry had 21, so it wasn't even really the Warriors took advantage. It was more some guys for the Thunder just didn't show up. Outside of Shai, they had Jalen Williams, who had 26 points, J-Dub, and then Isaiah Joe had 17. Those are their only double-digit scores, and their fourth leading scorer was a tie between Lou Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein, who both had 4 points. So it was a tough game from the Thunder's role players around their star guy. So it was tough to see. Another fun story from this week was Isaiah Thomas making a comeback to the NBA. He signed with the Salt Lake City Stars, the Jazz G League affiliate. And in his first game back, 37 points, 12 for 27 shooting, and 8 assists. It was fun to watch. It's fun to see these guys, it's fun to see, Isaiah Thomas still hooping. And, I just don't think he has a chance at becoming another guy in the NBA. The league just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when he was at his prime, he could get away with being a smaller guy on the court. But now that he's a little bit older, and if he gets in the NBA, he's going to be playing with a little bit older guys, more veteran guys than there is in the G League. I think he only drops 37 in the G League because he's getting guarded by a lot of guys that have never guarded him and never seen him play and been on the court with him at the same time. But when you're in the league, you're playing with a lot of guys that they've been around, and the difference between G League and NBA is still a big difference. Now, could Isaiah Thomas come in and average 7-8 points a game? Yeah, he could do that, but I don't know if a team's really going to take that and they're going to make it like, oh, we're just going to go out and get him, whereas we could have a younger guy come in and maybe give you the same amount of stuff. And then in the month of January, Nikola Jokic was hooping. He was killing it this month. And he's really making a case for that MVP. In January, he's had more triple-doubles than these players have had in their whole careers. The list includes Paul George, Damian Lillard, Isaiah Thomas, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Pistol Pete Maravich, Jason Tatum, Dwayne Wade, Anthony Davis, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That is absolutely crazy to hear that a guy like Nikola Jokic he's killing it, but nobody is really talking about Nikola Jokic this season. Like, I feel people are still talking about him because he is Nikola Jokic. Like, don't get me wrong. He's still, in my opinion, the best player in the NBA. But is he going to win MVP again? I don't see it happening. I mean, he's third in points per game this season, third in rebounds, and second in assists. He's having an amazing season, but it's just the fact that I don't think they're going to give him the award. And it's not even because the Nuggets are bad. The Nuggets are 28-19, and they're sitting at, let's take a look. They're sitting at, where is it? There's like, the Nuggets are not a bad team, and they're going to not be a team that you want to see when it comes to the playoffs. The Nuggets are the 4th seed in the West, behind the Thunder, who are obviously 37-9. They're sitting at the top. Rockets, Grizzlies, and then there's a little bit of a fall-off to the Nuggets, who are 3.5 games back from the Grizzlies. So, yes, if you go off of winning, Shai should still be, because Shai is still having an amazing year, too. I'm not going to discredit Shai. I just believe Nikola Jokic, who's averaging a triple-double, has more triple-doubles in a month than like 7 all-time players in the NBA, including Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So that's my take on it. I did pick at the start of the year for SGA to win the award, to win the MVP, but I'm not going to be surprised if Nikola Jokic wins it, and I'm not going to be upset. Now, you heard Dwayne Wade in that little list. Something came out, I think it was either yesterday. I saw it this morning, which I wanted to bring it up. I just want to bring up a quick thing and bring to light that we can't take any sort of advantage in life. Same thing with the Kobe thing. Don't take anything for granted. Don't live life how you want it to be, because Dwayne Wade revealed that in 2023 he had 40% of his kidney removed due to cancer. And the quote that he said was, "My family, my parents, my children, my wife have never seen me this weak." Like, he's always been the Superman, their superhero, and at this point in time, when he got this 40% of his kidney removed, he was not that. This can happen to anybody. And since then, he is cancer-free, and we just can't take anything for granted when it comes to life and healthiness. Just be mindful of your life and how great it is. because you are still alive. You're still alive and healthy, and just don't take it for granted. That's all I want to say. Now, a guy that is taking his NBA career for granted is Joel Embiid. I don't know how many times I've said it on this podcast, on my show, that Joel Embiid is the most selfish player in the NBA, and I'll never agree with Joel Embiid. I'm not going to say I'll never like him, because when he is on the court, he is a great player and I like watching him, but it's just, he's taking his career for granted so much. Now, I believe Wednesday night was their last game. He sat out against the Kings. In that game, he sat out his 400th game in his career. And his career earnings from sitting out 400 games is around $126 million. That's more money than Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, John Morant, Tyler Hero, and Tyrese Maxey have in their careers at this point. This is a wild stat. I think he's played 493 games and sat out 400 games. This is absolutely crazy. Like, why are we pushing? Like, this guy is the most selfish player in close to NBA history. I hate to say it. I don't want to call anybody selfish, but at this point, it's seeming a lot like he's selfish, because he's not going to the extent to help himself, help his body, help his team. He's just taking the money, sitting there. He doesn't look like he wants to even be in there. He's not coming out here saying anything in interviews that he wants to be on the court helping his guys. I saw Zion Williamson say that, talking about back-to-backs and how he hasn't been playing them in his career. He said, if I could play back-to-backs, I would play back-to-backs. I want to play back-to-backs. But he said, I work for the Pelicans, and if they say that's not the best for my career, then I'm not going to go against their judgment, and I'm going to listen to them. Now, at least Zion's coming out with some sort of excuse, and nobody is getting mad at what Zion said, because he is fully correct. He works for the New Orleans Pelicans. They pay him to be their player. If they don't want him playing in back-to-backs, yes, it's not fair for NBA fans. It's not fair for him. It's not fair for Pelicans players, but that's what they've decided, and that's how they're going to go with it. But Joel Embiid is just sitting out games, and he's making it look good to sit out games for a former MVP from recent memory, and it's sad to see. We'll move away from Joel Embiid and just NBA talk and talk about some All-Star Weekend, since it's coming up soon. We're going to talk about who's in the games, as well as Caitlin Clark has declined to participate in the three-point contest. And, I mean, I'm not surprised she did. I mean, we saw Sabrina Ionescu a couple of years ago, and maybe last year, participate in the three-point contest against Stephen Curry, and it was cool. Caitlin Clark, she said no. If she said yes, it probably would have been the same as Sabrina Ionescu. So it was her choice, and I don't like that people are getting upset at her or disappointed in her for not choosing it. But you're not her. You're not going to make her decisions for her. She made the decision, and we just have to respect it. Plain and simple. Slam dunk contest is set. We have Stephon Castle, Mac McClung, Andre Jackson Jr., and Modest Buzelis. I'm going to go out and already say Mac McClung is going for that three-peat. It's not going to look good on the NBA that a G League guy comes in and he's going to win 3 straight slam dunk contests. But maybe Andre Jackson will surprise us, but I don't know. It doesn't look good on the NBA having a G League guy come in and be the star of All-Star Weekend, basically. Now, we talked about the starters last week. Let's look at the reserves for the East and the West in the All-Star game. For the Eastern Conference reserves, we have Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Dame, and Tyler Hero. I love that Tyler Hero and Cade Cunningham are getting their flowers. They deserve it this season. A big surprise was that in the Eastern Conference, LaMelo Ball did not even make it as a reserve after he won the fan votes, and he's having a really good year. I personally believe that he deserved to be in the All-Star game, but coaches and league officials did not feel the same, so he's not in it. But I'm happy that Cade Cunningham got in there. I could see why they didn't vote LaMelo, just because the Hornets have been so bad this season and they're sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and why reward a team that's so bad a All-Star position. But if you look at it like that, then I understand. But I don't know, fan votes should matter in the All-Star game. I mean, it's supposed to be for the fans and for the players, so. But who cares about that? And then the Western Conference, we got Anthony Edwards from Minnesota, Anthony Davis, James Harden, Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Şengün, Jalen Williams, and Victor Wembanyama as the reserves. Love it. I personally might not have put J-Dub in there just because I feel like he gives off the vibes of Andrew Wiggins from a couple seasons ago, which the Andrew Wiggins position was that he was a starter in the All-Star game. I think maybe J-Dub does deserve it, and if Andrew Wiggins was a reserve in that All-Star game, it would have sounded better, and we would have been like, oh, it's the same situation. So I like that J-Dub made it. I love watching J-Dub. He's a fun player to watch. He's going to give a little bit of energy to the All-Star game if he plays, and it's fun to see some of these smaller market teams like the Thunder, the Grizzlies, the Rockets, the Timberwolves are finally getting their stars in the All-Star game, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be good for the league, getting these young guys in there. That's all I have to talk about today. This has been Beyond the Scoreboard presented by RDSE, and I hope everybody has a great day, and I'll see you next week.